Un vídeo de media hora sobre cómo de caro es viajar a Japón. En inglés. Tiene subtítulos en inglés.
As recently as 10 years ago, the words Japan, an affordable trip, didn't quite compute. It always felt a world away, a trip of a lifetime, perhaps out of reach for many. And yet today, with a significantly weakened yen and a country that's put tourism at the absolute forefront of its future,
Lo pone por 2 y aquí no pasó nada.
you might be surprised to learn that a trip to Japan isn't quite as expensive as you might think. Flights aside, it's
Pero, ¿de cuándo es esto? Hace 3 meses. ¿La gente sigue pensando que ir a Japón es como de lo más caro del mundo? Porque buen vídeo cala, iré a quitarme la vista. Pero no ha empezado. Chat, denle una oportunidad. Mientras que lo pueda comentar.
currently possible to spend 14 days in Japan on a budget of just $1,000. For overseas tourists,
$11.000. No, $1.000.
it's almost as if all of
A ver, se puede. Pero, ¿por qué ibas a hacerte eso?
Japan has a voucher code on right now. According to the Economist tongue-in-cheek Big Mac Index, while the cost of a Big Mac is almost $6 in the US and the UK respectively, Japan is almost half the price, nestled all the way down the list between Romania and Vietnam, at just over $3. From accommodation and transport to dining out and attractions, we'll discover just how much it costs to get around Japan, as well as if the JR Rail Pass is actually worth it, and how much you can expect to pay.
No. Uy, este pollo está rico de cojones. Este es el pollo más grasiento de la puñetera historia que he probado yo. Y está riquísimo, 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 tío. ¿Cómo se llama esto? Famichiki, tío. Vayan a un Family Mart y pídanle pollo. Vayan a un Family Mart y pidan este pollo. Está... Sobre todo cuando sales... Famichiki. Sobre todo cuando sales, son las 5 de la mañana, sales del local... Todo te sabe a alcohol, dices, menuda resaca se viene, tengo hambre, vas ahí, te pides unos famichiki. Si es que tienen, porque vuelan, ¿eh? Vuelan. O sea,
You're certainly spoilt for choice when it comes to the sheer variety of options
¿Necesitan subtítulos? ¿Les pongo subtítulos, chat?
on hand. From tiny capsule hotels and traditional ryokan inns to creepy themed love hotels and sprawling palatial rooms fit for a king. So out of curiosity, I wanted to find the cheapest hotel room I could in all of Tokyo, and you know, just because it's Japan, a land of cleanliness, honor.
Y creo que esta es su casa, ¿no? Qué héroe, tío. Qué bonito se lo tiene todo.
Respect doesn't mean that all accommodation is going to be
Su estudio.
good. You know, I've stayed at hotels here that I still have nightmares about. Case in point, a few years ago, stayed at a hotel with mould in the wallpaper, blood in the sheets, and a floor that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the fall of the Berlin Wall. I've actually found a single hotel room here, one stop away from...
Si le pones a traducir automáticamente, te lamería unas piedritas. ¿Cómo se hace eso? Traducir automáticamente. Lo quieren en Esperanto.
Shinjuku, the absolute centre of Tokyo, at the insane price of 2,500 yen, about $16. Again, that's not a bunk bed. This is a room, a whole room to yourself with a double bed. There's just one catch. Look at the reviews, and it reads a little bit like a Stephen King novel. Kana says, I didn't have a room key, there were dead cockroaches, and the bed and the floor were dirty. Could have been worse. Living cockroaches. Martha from America says, do not stay here, scammers, no lock on the door. And then she provides a photo of the door, held not in place by screws, but by Scotch tape. Don't worry, Martha, no one's coming through that door. Scotch tape, oh my god, it's almost audaciously brilliant. I'm actually tempted to stay there, to see it for myself. So when you see accommodation this cheap in Tokyo, please read...
Hay algunos pisos de mierda, tío. La primera casa a la que yo fui, que estaba ahí en el centro, sí que estaba algo más cuidada, pero igual el primer día me cayó una cucaracha del aire acondicionado. Pero bueno, es porque allí en Japón hay muchas cucarachas. Pero también hay algunas de estas alquilando pisos a extranjeros que son completa basura. Parecen cárceles. Hay que tener cuidado con eso, si no vas a un hotel.
the reviews first. Because while this place was 60...
¿Soportas los insectos? Mientras no sean avispas.
a night. You can find good accommodation in central Tokyo for about $25. Hotel rooms where you don't have to end up with cholera along the way. Having nearly frozen to death on an island camping trip in a previous episode, I'm making it up to my good friend Natsuki today with a luxury weekend away in Tokyo. But before it gets underway, I've lined up a capsule hotel for us that I suspect he won't be very happy about.
Alright, Natsuki,
Right.
your hotel, Rembrandt.
Rembrandt. ラグジュアリーじゃねえじゃん。ノーラグジュアリーじゃん。おいおいおい。マジか。
おいおい、マジか。
Thank you so much, good friend.
So in a capsule hotel, the first stop is the locker where you can keep your valuables.
Igual nunca iría a un hotel cápsula, tío. O sea, si ya me gusta poco la gente, imagínate dormir rodeado de ellos. Uf.
Because you don't want to clutter up your capsule, given how small it is naturally.
My room.
This is the capsule.
With 45 capsules packed into one dorm, aesthetically,
Pero se ve bonito.
it does all look like a futuristic spaceship.
Right from Mars. Down control to Major Tom. 1. Oh my god.
Gracias, Hiro Kaiser, por ese hijito.
The capsule hotel, and he seems to have been won over by the atmosphere. But as he clambers up into his capsule, it's time to deliver the verdict.
Welcome my doghouse. Doghouse there.
¿Y si son baratos? No lo sé.
Oh dear. It might seem like a doghouse, but from my personal experience, I generally sleep better in a capsule hotel than I do in a hostel dormitory, as the capsules are cosy and the capsule dorm tends to be quieter. However, two areas where hostels do
A ver, ahora en Japón todo está barato, pero...
win are generally on price, with an average of 3,500 yen per night. And above all, they're far more sociable, typically featuring bars and more friendly, conversational staff, as opposed to the more introverted capsule hotel experience. Either way, you can stay in a good hostel or capsule hotel in Tokyo for around 25,000 yen per week, and that is
Mi casa, la de los directos, era $1,100 al mes. En el centro de Shinjuku. Estaba genial.
pretty damn good value for money, even if Natsuki might disagree.
I do have one surprise. We're not actually staying here. 他のホテル予約したよ。
マジ？嘘でしょ。
No, really?
Oh, really?
Bastante caro. Que va a ser bastante caro. Una casa en el centro de Shinjuku. Un alquiler mensual de $1,100. O sea... Es bastante caro. No. Había otras, pero vamos, por 1,800, 2,000, 3,000 y no mucho más grandes, ¿eh?
これやばい。このホテルやばい。ドッグハウスだもん、もう。
My god, I don't think I've ever seen Natsuki so relieved. We'll be catching up with him.
Me refiero, es el centro de Tokio. Miren, esta torre se veía desde mi casa. ¡Esta torre se veía desde mi casa! Cara, solo estuviste 3 meses. ¡Era mi casa! Maldita sea. Ya, tengo un vídeo subido en Instagram en la Kabukicho Tower. Si la Kabukicho Tower está aquí y los edificios de tal están aquí, yo creo que mi casa tendría que estar por aquí, más o menos.
In his luxury skyscraper hotel room later on. So, this room is 9 square meters, and if you bring enough luggage, you may need to become a world-class gymnast to move between the bed and the bathroom. Nevertheless, for 9,000 yen, this is what you get: your own private room, your own private slice
Ah, fíjate, un hotel, 9,000 yenes la noche.
of Tokyo.
Ya te sale mucho más barato.
Complete with humidifier and fridge, TV, rudimentary coffee-making facilities, a bed with no less than 3 pillows, and of course the iconic modular bathroom with a tiny, albeit usable tub. You also get a good old Tokyo view, complete with a pachinko parlour thrown in. Woohoo. But that's a pretty good price, given we're 3 stops away from the action in Shibuya. And if you want a double room for 2 people, because God forbid you try and pack 2 people into this thing, it costs about 12,580 yen for a double room. But I'd say for a compact hotel room in Tokyo, you're looking at around 7,000 to 9,000 yen a night. Bearing in mind, we're on the west side right now, where things are a little bit more
Si la quieres así como para descansar y para la cama y ya, de cuarto vale.
pricey. Over in Ueno and Asakusa, you can find somewhere for about 1,000 yen cheaper than this. Now, if you want a more Western-sized hotel room, prices are generally closer to 25,000 yen. Just outside the window, I can see Mitsui Garden Hotel, la-di-da, where for 23,000 yen, you get an 18 square metre hotel room and a nice lavish double bed.
And perhaps more importantly, sound insulation. Something you come to appreciate staying in compact hotel rooms, where you can often hear your neighbours
Aislamiento acústico. Mi cosa preferida del mundo, tío.
every move. There are some more niche hotels aimed at families and group travellers. For example, Mimaru Hotels offer more spacious apartment-style rooms, complete with a kitchen, and best of all, they've infused it all with a pleasant Japanese aesthetic, with tatami mats and shoji sliding doors. As you travel around Japan, you'll come to associate different cities with different types of accommodation. And in more traditional cities like Kyoto or Kanazawa, I'd recommend staying in a Machiya townhouse. Staying in a Machiya used to be a luxury, but given the recent boom in renovation,
En una de estas estuve en Kioto. Hay que decir que no la disfrutamos. Eran 12 habitaciones. 12 habitaciones. Había como 4 cuartos de baño, un jardín así, un par de salones. Era enorme, era enorme, era enorme. Y éramos 4. Y moló un huevo, pero no la disfrutamos.
you can now find a really impressive townhouse between 20 to 50,000 yen a night. Meanwhile, I associate party capital Osaka with love hotels. While you can't typically reserve a love hotel, and it's certainly not fun turning up to one with luggage, it is worth trying one for the night, as they're so damn bonkers,
Love hotels.
and you get more bang for your buck here than you could ever hope for at a business hotel. I know
¿Cuánto? ¿8.000 yenes la hora? $53 la hora. Yo pagué 90 euros 3 horas. Cuando, en el 2016. Me acuerdo bien.
An overnight stay typically costs 8,000 yen, but of course you can also swing by for an hourly rate of between 2 to 3,000 yen. Now let's
Esa habitación. Pues está guapo porque puedes. Uy, pam, pim, ahí. Y fiesta erótico festiva y te levantas y pam, 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 pam. Unos puñetazos al saco de boxeo. Solo ten cuidado de no confundirte.
catch up with Natsuki, who switched
Y follarte al saco de boxeo, etcétera, etcétera.
out his so-called doghouse for a luxurious Tokyo penthouse suite high above the city.
Good key.
Good key.
Have a door. Have a door. Oh, I need a door.
Even the key is better.
Wow.
Thank you so much. Better than a capsule
Y así son mis hoteles siempre que me han invitado a Latinoamérica. Por eso me gustan tanto los hoteles de Latinoamérica. Full así, tío.
hotel. So.
Esos sofás, esos suelos, esos ventanales. Es como... se respira aquí calidad en Colombia, tío. En México, en Argentina. Es como... lujo, tío. Lujo.
Good big. I feel like a god. Oh, god. God.
Por amor no,
Oh,
pero
yeah.
por dinero las tengo a todas así, chavales.
Cala, tienes 22 años, en 2016 tenías 14. ¿De qué rayos hablas de ir a Japón en 2016? No nos mientas así.
Estaba ahí, tenía 14, mírenlo. Comparen.
Yeah.
Godzilla down there. Tiny.
Ah, está ahí el Godzilla, fíjate.
I need Godzilla.
Ah, pues quizás sí que se ve. A ver. No. Pero aquí, mira, si esto está aquí, esta calle de acá, que corta, aquí debajo, donde está mirando, esta, ven aquí, no se llega a ver. Pero ahí están los niños locos de Japón.
Yeah.
Los niños perdidos.
Godzilla down there. Tiny.
Tiny Godzilla.
Y aquí, ¿ven este bar? ¿Han visto haciendo reels en Instagram y cosas así? El bar donde hay una chica vestida de Rei Ayanami o de Asuka Angel y saludando a la gente por la calle. Es este bar. Y está sentada en esta ventanita. Y ven aquí, debajo de aquí es donde está el sitio donde puedes mirar, bajas, pagas y miras por un agujero. Y hay un montón de agujeros y tú miras y hay gente... Hay una pareja, hay un striptease o hay una pareja follando dentro y todo eso. ¿Y qué más? Aquí es donde pone I love... No, I love Kabukicho es en otro lado. Aquí Barret, gracias por ese Prime. Va, literal, he pasado por aquí los 3 meses que estuve. ¡Ay! ¡Ah! ¡Me duele!
I'm God.
You're braver than I am going on that fucking window.
Oh, fucking window.
Yo no sería incapaz de hacer eso. Siempre que he tenido un hotel así con a ras de la ventana y tal cual, es como me mantengo a 30. Me mantengo a 1 metro de la ventana. Pero es cristal de 3 kilómetros, Cala. No me fío.
Oh my god. I'm not gonna lie, this is a terrifying view. I think it's because there's no other tall buildings in this area, so you do feel like you're almost in the clouds, like a god view, as Nevsky put it. I must say though, I don't really see the attraction to staying.
Fíjate. Nah, eso es pasarse, tío. $1000 la noche. Ya cuando estás en $1000 de la noche, el dinero te la tiene que sudar. Lo puedes coger como algo súper especial, Dios. Voy a ir con mi novia a Japón, solo vamos 3 días, nos acabamos de casar. O mi novio. Tal cual, pues venga, lo pago. Pero si no, estas habitaciones son como las primeras clases de los vuelos. Te la tiene que sudar el dinero.
Somewhere like this. This is 150,000 yen. You can get this view for free just across the road, as we'll see later on in the video. If you do have the money to spend on a room like this, maybe you're on your honeymoon, I'd say save the money.
¿Has viajado en primera clase? Solo una vez a Argentina. Y porque se equivocaron de billete y me dieron un primera clase, así como regalo.
Somewhere a little bit cheaper with a slightly less good view, but that money will go a lot further out in the mountains, staying at a Japanese inn, like a traditional ryokan, where you'll get a nice kaiseki multi-course dinner, and if you're lucky, you might
Y en este es donde estuvimos la última vez, allí en Hokkaido.
get a private hot spring bath in your room. And I think
Solo que no pagamos un desayuno tradicional y todo eso.
that's where the money will go a lot further than just getting a room that is incrementally higher up with a bigger view than elsewhere. Unless you're trying to impress Natsuki and repay him after nearly freezing to death camping on an island.
Now, even though the Japanese yen
¿Cuánto dura este? Tío, no llevamos ni 10 minutos del vídeo. Se pasaron.
is at a magic
Pero bueno, lo puedo ir comentando.
price right
Igual también pueden comentar, chat. No hace falta que sea yo el único que reaccione.
now, I still think a trip here can get very expensive very fast.
Lo pausas
and
mucho,
so I want to
cierto.
share with you 3 quick tips for saving money with today's sponsor, ExpressVPN.
No, esto me lo paso.
I
I don't give a fuck.
I've been Rail Pass. Is it worth it anymore? No, unfortunately not.
La verdad, esto no lo podríamos saltar también. ¿Sale rentable el Rail Pass? No.
Until last year was a pretty sweet deal. For 29,650 yen, you got 7 days of travel on Shinkansen, buses, local trains, all included. However, at the end of last year, the price went up 7.
¿Por qué no? Pues porque ha crecido un montón el precio. A mí no me valía ya antes, pero ahora menos. Cuesta, pero un 70%. Yo pensé que habían subido un 90% o algo así. En plan, vamos.
To 50,000 yen. And for some context,
Un 300%.
if you make a return journey between Tokyo and Kyoto, with stops at Osaka and Nara, that still comes in at only 30,000 yen. Likewise, Tokyo to Hiroshima, a return ticket is about 39,520 yen. I don't think it's worth it, and most people that I polled online didn't either. Unless, of course, you
Igualmente, el punto para mí no es porque ya lo he dicho muchas veces, Japón es un parque de atracciones enorme, con 1.000.000 de cosas que hacer en cada calle y que ver. Y el Rail Pass te dura una semana. O sea, dura una semana, creo, ¿no? Es un elemento que ya en sí te está obligando a moverte de un lado para otro a Japón. Y a mí no me gustan los viajes de levantarme temprano para ver cosas, para ir a un tren que me tiene que llevar, porque tenemos 2 días en Osaka, 2 días en tal sitio y 3 días en el otro, y hay que intentar verlo todo. Así que nunca me ha gustado.
head to speedrun all of Japan in 7 days. Get off
Todavía no me he terminado Tokio, Grim.
the train, Himeji Castle, take a photo, back on the train.
Ah, mira, está diciendo lo que yo digo.
Look at Sensoji Temple, it's good in it.
Historic cultural history, red lacquer facade. Right, back on the train. Oh, it's Fushimi Inari Taisha Shrine, and it's red and lots of wood. I would die, I hate this. Oh.
But that's not to say
También hay que decir que puedes decir esas cosas cuando te puedes permitir ir muchos meses o como cuando, pues como este tipo, vives allí. Intuyo que si solo tienes 2 semanas de vacaciones al año, pues tampoco...
there aren't still some good bargains out there on regional Japan rail passes. Last year, while riding a train in Hokkaido, I met a guy who was travelling the whole of the island for 7 days for 27,000 yen, having a whale of a time until he was forced to sit next to Natsuki and I for the duration of the journey. Wow. And likewise, Tohoku, North Japan, has a rail pass for 30,000 yen for 5 days. It costs 20,000 yen to get to Sendai and back alone, and if you're doing a trip to multiple cities in the north, like Aomori or Akita, then you should definitely be able to save some money.
I
Getting around.
used to live and die by the night bus. It's such a great way to save money. Not only is it cheap, but you save the money on the accommodation that you would have slept in as well. When I used to travel on my
¿Ves? Yo ahí no. Si en algo derroché, aparte de en todo lo que derroché, fue en... A poco que me cerraban un tren o cualquier cosa, taxi. Taxi, taxi. Taxi. Me pegaban unas puñaladas, pero era no, taxi. Taxi.
20s around Japan with friends, we would always get the night bus between Tokyo and Kyoto, or Kyoto and Hiroshima, where it costs as little as
A ver,
5,000
no me pillé un
yen
taxi
one
a
way
Kyoto.
on a weekday, compared to the Shinkansen, which is 14,000 yen. But it means you can have
O
a good night out in
caminando
Tokyo,
también.
eat, drink, be merry, and then at 10 p.m. call it an early night, hop on the night bus and arrive in Kyoto, having saved 8,000 yen on accommodation in Tokyo and 9,000 yen having not ridden the bullet train. One important note to add is while you may save some money, if you're like me, you might not sleep on the night bus at all. And your day walking around Kyoto may be somewhat ruined as you're turned into a walking, talking zombie from your sleep-deprived state. Definitely something to weigh up and consider when choosing the night
Estamos en el mismo team.
bus.
One of Japan's most overlooked budget travel options are actually low-cost airlines. There's companies like Peach, Skymark, Jetstar, and Airdo. It's kind of annoying. It looks like Airdo, but it's pronounced Airdo. And I hate that name. It's just really annoying. Anyway, point is, it's quite cheap. A lot cheaper using one of these carriers than ANA or Japan Airlines. Case in point, to travel from Tokyo to Sapporo costs around 20,000 yen on Peach Airlines. The same route on ANA costs a whopping 62,000 yen. 3 times the amount for a slightly bigger chair. Money much better spent in Hokkaido or miso ramen and cookies. Of course. God bless low-cost airline travel. For most people, we'll be travelling around on local trains, especially in cities like Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka, and it is very reasonable to go on the Ginza Line subway train.
Esto es, ¿dónde está? Esto es lo que hice en mi día más esquizofrénico, ¿vale? A ver, si esto es... Si calculamos que esto es el parque... Por aquí está Harajuku... No. ¿Dónde putas está Harajuku? ¿Harajuku es esto? Sí. Si ponemos que esto es Harajuku, ¿vale? Bueno, aquí está el parque el parque grande al lado de Harajuku. Y subimos por aquí. Esta es la estación de Shibuya. Y mi casa estaba aquí. En este cuadradito pequeño gris. Y entonces bajé por esta calle andando. Y dije, si puedo caminar hacia un lado, podría caminar hacia el otro. Y empecé a andar toda esta calle. Pasé por el parque este del Jardín de las Palabras. Y bajé por aquí. Avancé por aquí. Pasé todo, atravesé toda esta ciudad. Llegué a este lo salté. Llegué hasta el castillo de Tokio. Y dije, ya que he llegado hasta el castillo de Tokio, puedo seguir andando. Y di toda la vuelta por aquí. Y dije, en vez de subir para arriba, puedo ir para abajo. Y pasé por aquí, Esto es Ginza, si no recuerdo mal. Pasé todo Ginza, Y dije, ya que estoy aquí, puedo llegar a Odaiba. Y salté a Odaiba y hice todo esto andando. Aquí me salí del mapa y más o menos una isla como esta, pero aquí abajo, fui para la izquierda y llegué a la Gundam Store 6 horas después, 6 horas y media después, todo con los pies destruidos, todo destrozado, y me compré la chaqueta de Gundam que quería. Y ya después de eso pillé el transporte público y me volví a casa. Pero menudo paseo.
From Asakusa in East Tokyo all the way west to Shibuya. 34
Cala derrochando en taxis, también 50 kilómetros de pana. La verdad es que
minutes, 19 stops.
valió la
all for
pena.
the price.
A mí me encanta pasear por ciudades que no conozco y donde me siento seguro. Bueno, y donde no me siento seguro también.
Of just 260 yen. It's a real bargain. Like, to put it in perspective, to make that same journey in a taxi costs 6,000 yen. Absolute joke price, when you can almost do it for free on an underground train. Likewise, to get across Kyoto by train costs around the same amount, and honestly, if you're riding around local trains in Tokyo, Kyoto, or Osaka, odds are you're not going to be spending more than around 500 to 700 yen a day to get around. Just make sure you grab yourself a Suica card the moment you arrive in Japan. It's the first thing you should do, because it will mean
Menos mal que Rookie me dio una Suica de estas, porque ya no las están fabricando por falta de chips.
You can tap in and out of stations without needing to fumble for coins or cash. Because there's a chip shortage right now, it's actually really tricky to get hold of one of these green Suica cards. However, for tourists, you can get a welcome Suica card at the airport, which works for a limited 28-day period, or you can grab a Suica card like this on your phone, just a nice NFC card on your phone there. However you choose to do it,
que
make
eso,
sure
la
you
puedes
get one of
tener en el
these,
teléfono en
and
un
it'll
momento.
save you an absolute nightmare
Sí,
getting
están en el
stuck at
teléfono.
ticket booths around stations, and yeah, almost twice the amount. I'm not sure what situation really justifies Grand Class. Maybe you just want the best train seat in the world. Maybe you want free-flowing sake as you rocket 320 kilometers per hour across the Tohoku countryside. Now that prices. In fact, it's got a name, Inbound Don, a reference to inbound tourists and donburi, the rice bowl dish. As a rule of thumb, if you're in a touristy area like Toyosu Fish Market or Sensoji Temple, and you see a shop plastered in English, usually that means bad food and extortionate prices, so bear that in mind. I mean, just the other week I was in Osaka and I saw a restaurant simply called Sushi and Wagyu Samurai, the physical manifestation of tourist cash grab. And yet, surprisingly, it was somehow very busy. Who knows? Maybe...
Cuando era joven tenía una ex que practicaba MMA con el papá a veces y me dijo que el papá le enseñó que cuando no puedes con un oponente de un lado, se puede por el otro. Me sorprendí cuando se enojó conmigo porque le dije la frase, porque dijo que no quería quedar embarazada.
Sushi Wagyu Samurai is the hottest ticket in town. I missed it. Should have gone in. Now, naturally, while travelling around Japan, there's going to be a day or two where you pop into a convenience store for lunch or dinner. What can your money get, though? This is some stuff I brought from Family Mart. Let's have a quick rundown.
Y no ha comprado
on the
yagaricos.
prices.
Qué
Starting
perro,
over
tío.
here with lunch. I think this is a good...
¿Cómo no ha comprado yagaricos? O sea, compra unas Pringles, compra unas putas Pringles y no compra unos yagaricos.
little lunch here, a cheeky lunch that I might modify in just a moment. But you've got a Philippines Highland banana, Oikos protein yogurt, a apple drink, and good old tuna and egg sandwich, all washed down with some delicious Family Mart coffee for 180 yen. Now this is pretty good value for money, about $6 for all this. But I'm going to add in a few optional extras and make it a bit more realistic for what I would probably have for my lunch. And of course, it starts with adding in Family Mart chicken, that's 220 yen. Then we've got Pringles, they're about 159 yen. And onigiri rice ball with some tuna mayonnaise, that's about 155 yen. So,
Está baratísimo todo.
now, this costs about 1,400 yen. That's still under $10. So for less than $10 a day, you can have a fairly well-rounded lunch at a convenience store in Japan. I might make a few other adjustments. I might have maybe more than one, maybe three, maybe two, maybe four. Coke is obviously ubiquitous the world over, and here in Japan, a 500ml bottle costs 107.
Yo en Japón, o alcohol o té. Puro té. Té frío, té de matcha, té caliente, té con limón, té o alcohol. Pero refrescos, ninguno.
22 yen from Family Mart. You can probably find it a little bit cheaper in some places. And that is, I believe, cheaper than you'll find in the UK or North America by a fair bit. Best beer in Japan, Sapporo beer, 224 yen, very reasonable. This is kind of worrying. This is Strong Zero, the Chuhai drink, and it's 9%, right?
Está malísimo.
And it costs 162 yen, which is a joke. They're actually considering banning Strong Zero drinks at the moment because 9% at such a ludicrous price is rather dangerous. 3 cans of this, you won't remember your name. 4 cans, you get a free ticket to Narnia.
Allí conocí a Rookie.
Now, of course, you didn't come to Japan just to eat from a convenience store. Well, hopefully. Japan's most nourishing budget meal is gyudon, the hearty beef bowl found at stores like Sukiya,
In
Yoshinoya and Matsuya. Expect to pay about 400 yen for a regular-sized beef bowl. One well-rounded option are Japan's family restaurants, my favourite of which is Royal Host.
Tío, qué puto
where
hambre.
Natsuki and I
¿Quién me ha
find
mandado este
ourselves
vídeo?
grabbing lunch back over in Shinjuku.
Voy a vetar los
The Japanese family
vídeos.
restaurants often get a bad rap, usually from me, admittedly, but there's one that is good, and it's called Royal Host. Look at this. First of all, this costs 1,700 yen. You've got chicken, avocado, bacon, tomato, egg, potato, garlic bread, onion soup, again, all for about $11. Isn't that insane? And it's got beer.
Welcome morning beer,
And also you get a drink bar thrown in as well, or you can drink.
like an uncle.
You can find much cheaper family restaurants, but the food is not to this.
Va, qué guapo aquella noche en el karaoke. En vez de ir a por bebida, a la máquina de bebidas a recargar la bebida, tío, yo iba a recargarme la sopa de miso. No sé cuántos tazones de sopa de miso dejé en aquella habitación.
Sort of quality. So.
Igual estaba ebrio, pero...
Like it.
Very good. That's tucking.
Now, if there's one meal you break the bank for on your trip to
Y el cargador nadando en Coca-Cola. Buah.
90.
90. Wow, that's a little bit more over 10.
While teppanyaki is pricey, one little hack is to visit the restaurants at lunchtime, where set lunch courses are typically several thousand yen cheaper than the dinner time option. But what's the verdict? Has Natsuki finally let me off the hook?
Good friend.
So nice. Good friend. You're a good man. No shit. You're a good man.
You heard it here first. Not shit.
Next up, guys, we've got attractions and things to do in Japan.
Disney
Come on
Sea.
down to Tokyo Disneyland, where it's a small world after all. Except it's not, is it? It's a green screen after all, because I'm a grumpy 33-year-old man and I don't want to queue for 4 hours to ride Space Mountain.
¡Ah! Puta madre, tengo que controlarme. Ve, detrás de este edificio estaba. Bueno, ya me vieron paseando por la calle. ¡Ah!
And on a bling around Yoyogi Park is free. The slightly more curated Shinjuku Park does cost 500
Chat, métanse en la Red Week.
yen, although up until a few years ago, it was free. Well, sort of. In a wild story, it turns out the park attendant was so scared to charge foreign tourists money, he let 160,000 tourists enter for free, costing the garden $200,000 in lost revenue. My God, if only he worked at Shake Shack. Meanwhile, games arcades are reasonably cheap as well, costing me just 400 yen.
La Kabukicho Tower es full sacar dinero a extranjeros.
It's broken. Broken, maybe broken. Broken. Oh, yeah.
Still, revenge is swift as I cough up yet another 400 yen for the both of us to play Mario Kart, and in which victory is finally mine. The key word is humble. A humble victory.
The last second. Yeah. Not broken, not broken. Good game, good game.
Now, while Tokyo has no shortage of observation decks with which to enjoy the city, it can get pricey pretty fast to enjoy the privilege, with the newly opened Shibuya Sky Deck costing 2,200 yen with a nasty queue to match, or the Tokyo Skytree clocking in closer to 3,000 yen per person. But why bother queuing or paying at all when you can visit the Tokyo Metropolitan Government Building, home to the office of the mayor no less, and having spectacular views of the city, all for the price of free. Just make sure if you do go up, you pick a better day than we did weather-wise.
This is the OG of observation decks. This is actually where I came for my
A este no
first
me he
day
subido.
in Tokyo.
Wow.
Jet lag dead. I came up here and I sat by the window and had a chocolate cake. The chocolate cake wasn't free. That was very expensive. Don't do that.
Wow.
When I'm up here, though, I feel like nostalgic. Kind of remember, how I felt that first day. Confused, jet lagged, tired. And it's crazy to see how much Tokyo skyline has changed in that time. It's probably 30% more skyscrapers.
No, but
Okay.
no changes.
The Yogi Park's the same.
Quitaron ese edificio.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the top of the Meiji Jingu Shrine.
Meiji Jingu, Meiji Jingu, Meiji Jingu. Meiji Jingu, Meiji Jingu, Nobunaga, Oda.
I don't know what that was, but it was fun. And that's how we roll. Let's get out of here.
While visiting a Japanese inn and getting your own private hot spring bath is certainly pricey, getting to experience a Japanese Sento public bathhouse is surprisingly cheap, where you can enjoy the soothing waters and retro atmosphere for as little as 500 yen. Maybe you're travelling solo or with a friend, but swing by one and I promise you, you won't regret it. Moving up the scale,
Te dejan
visiting a
entrar.
theme park here might be pricey, but compared to the US or Europe, it can be a lot cheaper. Disneyland Tokyo is almost half the price of Disneyland Orlando. So if you've got kids or you want to meet Goofy, Japan might well be the best place to do it.
Y por eso está tan lleno, tío. Suban el precio. Doblen el precio de esa entrada. Manden a todos esos niños a su puta casa.
My favourite theme park is called Fuji-Q. It's 90 minutes from Tokyo, and as well as having the biggest, baddest rides in Japan, you get a spectacular view of Mount Fuji thrown in, and as a bonus, you get to terrify Charlotte. What a bargain. Now, over the years, we've gotten to do some pretty luxurious things on board Japan, and 2 luxury attractions that I think justify the price tag are, number 1, taking a private plane over Sakurajima, Japan's most active volcano. I'm someone who doesn't enjoy flying, but this was easily one of the best things I've ever done. It cost 44,000 yen for the 3 of us to fly for about 45 minutes, but the view was honestly jaw-dropping, and it's a journey I'll never forget. Likewise, for a trip to Okinawa, we chartered
Aquí ya se le ha ido. ¿Quieres viajar en avioneta por encima de un volcán?
yacht for the day, which cost 100,000 yen, which wasn't so bad when you factor in there were 6 people in our group and it was an $800,000 catamaran. If you've got a group of friends who can split the
Así
cost,
está barato.
it's definitely worth doing. Still, both of these pale in comparison to Japan's most luxurious sleeper train, the 7 Stars in Kyushu, where for 3 nights aboard Japan's answer to the Orient Express, you'll be coughing up 1.3 million yen for the cheapest room. Even if you could justify the cost, good luck getting on it, as it has a formidable waiting
$8,000.
list. But as far as luxury experiences in Japan go, it can't be beat.
Qué guapo, imagina que te toca el vagón de cola. Molaría.
Now we've covered every
Cala, no. Chat, necesito $8,000. No me pregunten. Y les prometo un anime gratis.
aspect of travel in Japan. Let's put it all together and see
Siempre te gastas eso, pero en 2 meses.
how much a 14-day trip here would cost. We're going to do it at those different price points again, budget and standard. I don't really see the point in doing luxury like a luxury mega trip by Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg, although, as we've seen by Mark Zuckerberg, he eats McDonald's and thus he's a simple man just like everyone else. Oh. That being said, the trip we did on our 14 days in Japan itinerary video was kind of between standard and luxury, so we'll put a figure on that trip as well. So first off, overall, what is the cheapest possible trip that you can have in Japan? For 14 days, staying in capsule hotels and hostels, you're looking at about 70,000 yen. For transport, that comes in around 18,000 yen, with an average cost of 600 yen per day, and including that night bus to West Japan and back. Spending 2,000 yen per day on food, that's about 28,000 yen, and finally for attractions, about 7,000 yen. Put it all together, and you get 123,400 yen. A rather perfect number. Very bizarre. But if you add 20%, because these things always cost more than you expect, you get 148,000 yen, which comes to $987 or 780
Ahora sí me siento de nuevo en el canal, no
which
como
is an
cuando Cala
insane
no
price
mataba
point.
nada en
You know,
el
this
del
is
ring.
a pretty strict holiday.
Ayer lo
It's a
maté todo.
no-frills trip. You aren't going to be going to the best hotels or the finest restaurants, but it is still a good, solid 14 days in Japan. You can see and do a lot. Next up, standard travel. Now, the cost can go up dramatically here, particularly when switching capsule hotels and hostels for actual hotel rooms. With an average of 8,000 yen for 14 days, that takes us to 112,000 yen. Switching out night buses for bullet trains almost triples the cost there as well. Eating out at slightly pricier restaurants doubles the cost there to 56,000 yen. And likewise, going to attractions.
Bueno, yo creo que esta parte ya la podemos saltar. Cansado. Muy largo. Opinión, muy largo. Comentable, sí. Pero muy largo. Debatible, 0.